The pictures. Oh, I have an extra copy, so I can give you one of these if you want it for yours.
Absolutely.
This is the landing on D-Day. These are landing crafts, and this is the buff I was telling you about.
These are photos you took?
Yeah.
Wow.
In other words, if you were an important part of the signal corps, they would give you a camera to take his pictures. That's how everything got back that they have. Now, I was not supposed to have these, but the friend who developed them, who worked for the signal corps, was a very good friend of mine. And when I came down, he threw the roll of film in my duffel bag.
So I'm noticing
That's that's the first screw. That's some of the guys, after we went over the side, some of the guys finally went out the front.
But you're still in the boat.
No, what? Oh, I'm in the boat yet.
But you ended up going over the side.
I went over the side.
It looks like they're doing okay, though.
Yes. I'm going to give you some stuff after we get done. It'll be
Okay.
easier for me to give it to you then than try to give it to you as I talk.
All right, well, we're back in business. We're rolling.
As I told you, we had just gone through that 88 situation. And after that, we pushed on, and we finally wound up in Munich, Germany. And Munich, Germany is about, maybe, let's see, about 15 miles from the where we were to meet the Russian army in the Elbe River. That's spelled E-L-B, Elbe River. As you know, the President of the United States gave the Russians the okay to go into Berlin. And we were not to go into Berlin, they were to take it. And we were to meet the Russians at the Elbe River. As we started out from Munich, Germany in my half-track, and we're headed up the road, it was a mopping up situation. And all of a sudden, the driver and my assistant driver hollered out that there's a prisoner of war camp ahead of us. Now, all the time that we were in the Army, no one except the higher up knew about concentration camps. Our orders always were, if we came across a prisoner of war camp, we were to release our soldiers, get them out free. If they needed hospitalization, get them back to hospitals, or otherwise get them back into battle. So concentration camps we knew nothing about. And as we were going up this road, not a road, but it's a field, as we're going through the field, our driver kept on hollering. He says, there's people running out across the field carrying white stuff. So I got my field glass, I looked in, and all SS troops were in charge of all the concentration camps. And they wore a black uniform. And what they were doing, they were running, and they were taking as much paper with information with them to burn later on. And that's why it was important for us to get there to save as much as we could. When we got up to the top, it's a sight that I could never believe in my life, what I saw. And at that time, I was 20 years old. I was 19 when I landed on Omaha Beach. I was 20. And there, you saw nothing but dead bodies. I'll show them to you. I have all the pictures for you to take a look at.
Are these photos that you took?
Oh, yes. All the pictures that I'm showing you were taken by me, and I'll show them to you when we get to it. We came up to the gate, and the guy from the 40th Armored Division broke the lock, and we went in. And you could see nothing but piles of dead bodies all around you. That's all you saw. The gentleman in charge of the 40th Armored Division told me to get a hold of Army headquarters. which I was already in touch with, and I had told them what we had come across. We thought at that time we had liberated the first concentration camp, but we found out that was not to be. And I'll show you, I have a list of all the. We liberated it on April the 29th, 1945.
And which camp was this?
Dachau Concentration Camp. The next day you could hear sirens, and General Eisenhower and all the high-ranking officers were on the way up. He called on the mayor of the town of Dachau. The camp was named Dachau because the town of Dachau's right there. Before the war, it was the first prison camp that Hitler built. It was built in 1923, and it was built to hold those people who did not believe in what Hitler was doing. It was a war camp, not a prison camp. It was then turned into a concentration camp. And when they arrived, he called the mayor of the town up, and he made them march all the people from the town of Dachau up to the camp. And the march is like from here to the next building up, building 1, that's how far you have to walk. And he brought all the people up there, and he told the 40th Armored Division to get teams of 2 people to pick up these dead bodies and lay them in they had dug a long draft with a bulldozer, and then they would lay them in there. They would put the what do they call that stuff they pour over them to dissolve the body?
Lime?
It's like lime. And then they would cover them up. That's how they buried them, all in a row, not individual cemeteries or burials.
So about how many people were still alive?
I would say, when we liberated the camp, there was close to 400 inmates still left in the camp that were alive. So that's when we liberated the camp. And
I can imagine the stench of this place.
it was just an unbelievable situation. My wife and I, when we went back, they had torn down all the barracks except about 6, which they turned into a museum there. And then if you go in the museum, it's the whole story of Dachau in there. Again, we met the Russians at the Elbe River, and that was about the end for me. But we were also, there was the Normandy massacre. That's where the Germans took our prisoners that were on the way back to Germany and took them into a field, and then they brought them in a field and they machine gunned them all to death. And that was probably the worst thing. From that day on, we were told if we had to get a hold of if we got prisoners, get back from headquarters as soon as possible, which meant to us kill them on the way. And that's what we did as we went along the way. As I said before, it was just an impossible situation. Let me, after Dachau, I got we got back together with our unit. My commanding officer told me I had a decision to make, and I told him my only decision I make is going home. He says, that's what I want to talk to you about. And that's what he said to me. You can be transferred to the 100th Infantry Division, which I was, and I came home. I'm going to show you some stuff here. And I hope I can find all.
So when you liberated Dachau, being Jewish and finding out that these prisoners were Jewish, what were your thoughts at that point?
Well, the thoughts were, as I said before, you say to yourself, how can one human being do this to another human being? You just can't figure that out. You got to remember, I came out of high school. Okay? When I went to high school, yes, I knew that there was problems with the Germans and the Jewish people and etc. We knew about it. But we didn't know how bad it was, you know. And again, we had not heard about it, concentration camps, the whole time I was overseas, until that day when we got there. And you say to yourself, how can people do this to one another? And again, as I said, a lot of the men, well, most of everybody in my unit were not Jewish. I was the only Jewish guy. And before we went over, when we were still in England, we were getting replacements and so forth. And I did something, I didn't know it was the right thing to do or not. Because as Jewish, I never had any problems in the Army. So I went to my company commander and I said to them, you know, we're getting a lot of new people into my unit. My guys know that I'm Jewish, but maybe some of these new people may not want to serve under me. I want to give them the opportunity to be transferred to another unit if they don't want to go with in my unit. So he says, are you sure you want to do that? So I said, I don't know, I'm asking you. What do you think I should do? He says, well, if I was you, I would just let them go in there and you take the guys like you always did. He says, but if you feel that you want to give them an opportunity, it's strictly up to you. So I went to some of the guys in my unit and I says, guys, I got a decision to make. We're getting new people in, and you guys all know I'm Jewish, but these people don't know. Maybe I should tell them if they don't want to serve with me, they can be transferred to another. He said, screw them. So I thought about it, and I decided to do it anyway. I didn't lose one. And deep down, I thought it was the right thing to do. Until this day, I still don't know if it's right or wrong.
It worked out.
So anyway, we were very fortunate, our unit, and I finally said to the company commander, send me to 100th Infantry, send me home, and send me the Bronze Star. When I get it, I'll get it. I was interviewed by Fox News, and this is the write-up about what took place. And if you want, before you leave, I can give you a copy of this.
Right.
This,
I'm sorry, keep going.
This is a copy of my background about me. This was taken in Germany. So I can give you a copy of that.
So how did you end up getting home?
I got transferred to the 100th Infantry, and I came home on a victory ship.
Sailing out of where?
Out of lower part of France. I forgot the name of the harbor. It's if you go to Paris and you go to the lower part of, let's see if I don't have it here, I can't show it to you, but the lower part of France is a port, and that's where the ships were leaving from.
Le Havre, maybe?
That's right.
Le
Thank
Havre.
you. That's it.
And where did you sail into?
We sailed into New York. Now, they weren't in a hurry to get us home. We got over in 5 days on the Queen Elizabeth. Going home, it took us 2 weeks to get home. Of course, we were on a victory ship. And it was a convoy going back to New York.
Now, this is prior to VE Day?
No, the war in Japan was over.
No, VE, war in Europe.
Oh, yeah, the war in Europe. I was there when the war came to the end. Yeah, the war was over in Europe, definitely. When we met the Russians at the Elbe River, that was the end of fighting, because the Russians had already taken Berlin, and we met up with them. and basically war was finished. It was done, as far as we were concerned.
So you took it? Did you take a train down to Philly from New York?
I took a train from New York to. I went up to in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania. I was in camp. That's where I got discharged from. Maybe it has it here on my discharge paper. Good old glasses. And that's the guy that signed my paper. No, it doesn't have. It's
No.
January 1949.
1949?
That's what it says here. That's when I was discharged. I came home in December
Of what year?
of 48.
Now, it would have to have been 45?
No, I'm only reading what it says here. Enlisted January 19, well, 19, yeah. It says here, 16th day of January, this certifies award. Oh, this was an award I got, I'm sorry. Oh, I know, this is an award. I thought
Okay.
this was my discharge.
So,
Oh, there's my discharge up there. What's it say? I can't even see. December the 4th, 1946. I can't even see. Can you see it?
which one
This is
this is it. December 4th, no, that's...
Oh, here's my discharge. I don't.
No.
Oh,
That's-
there it is.
There it is. There it is.
I know it's somewhere. What can you see? I can't even see it.
No, that's an award. That's got to be an
That
award,
must be an
too.
award. I don't know where I'm at. These, I got so much
No,
stuff. I
that's
don't know.
okay. So, tell me about coming home, and
Well, coming home, naturally, what did you do? You sat out on deck all day long, taking in that sun if it was a beautiful day. And just to know that there was nobody shooting at you, it was unbelievable.
so did you have a girlfriend at the time?
No, no.
So you came home to your
I
parents?
came home to my parents, and that was when I got home. After I was home about a week, my mother said to me, "You don't have no clothes." I said, "Well, what happened to all my clothes?" She says, "I threw them away because I figured you weren't going to be able to wear them when you came home, you know." So she says, "I want you to go down to Chestnut Street and Walnut Street," and she says, "Remember, it's south of Market." I said, "Mom, I know where it is." So I go down, and what happened? I wound up north of Market on Spruce Street.
Oh, well, that's
Arch
still
Street,
south.
Arch Street,
Okay.
Arch Street. And I'm walking down the street, and I say to myself, I must be on the wrong street. It's all this is electronic places around here. And all of a sudden I see this place with a flag, American flag hanging out. So I says, well, I wonder what's going on there. And I walk in, and in there, they just opened, they're giving out sandwiches and drinks, and it's a place called Almo Electronics. And I walk in, and as I walk in, I see on the floor is all the equipment I operated during the war. He must have bought it in surplus. So somebody comes in, he comes up to me and he says, "You know anything about that equipment on the floor?" I said, "Yeah, I operated during the war." So he says, "I'm a ham." I said, which is a, shortwave. So I said, "What do you want to do?" He says, "Well, I want to see if I can work it with my equipment." I said, you can, but there's only one thing. You got to put a high antenna up on the roof. He said, well, I have an antenna up now. So I said, well, then you're in business. Go over. He said, I'll take one. I said, I don't work here. I stopped in to get a sandwich and a drink like everybody else. So make a long story short, I said, go over to the counter, somebody will wait on you. So he goes over. Meanwhile, there's a man listening to this whole story, an elderly man. And when he went, I sent him over there, then he said to me, he says, how would you like to come to work for me? I said, why, do you own this place? He says, yeah, this is my place. I just opened it. I used to work for my competitor, which was Radio Electric up the street. So I said, nah, I get $20 a week for 52 weeks for doing nothing. So he says, but I'll pay you more. Well, to make a long story short, I get home and I said to my father, boy, did you raise a dumb son. My father said to me, now what did you do? I said, I got a job and I start Monday and I got to work even on Saturdays and I'm going to get $25 a week. I was getting $20 a week for staying home, Dad. And my father said, you did the right thing. And he was right. I was with the company for 45 years. I was the executive vice president of the company. We were one of the largest distributors of electronic component parts. We traveled, my wife and I traveled all over the world because we sold and we imported from all over the world. And that was my division. Since I was overseas a lot and knew a lot of the places, they put me in charge of that division. And that's what I did. And I'm still friendly with them. In fact, the son-in-law and the daughter, who our father owned the company, they still have the company up on Roosevelt Boulevard. And we go out at least 3 times a year. I get together with them, or I go up to the company. And when I come up, all the flags they can fly, they put out in the building.
So do you still see anybody from the service?
Only person I'm in contact with is my commanding officer, and he's a brigadier general. What happened when I was interviewed by Fox News, they came here from New York to interview me, and they took my whole story down, and they said to me, we're going to run this on, and they gave me the channel. Well, I didn't know, and the channel they gave me was a New York channel. And my wife and I were going to a place in Silver Springs, Maryland for a bar mitzvah. So I told my son and my daughter and my son-in-law, please make sure you get this. And I gave them that channel. Well, when I came back, I had on my phone, I must have had about 72 telephone calls. And I said to my wife, what the hell's going on here? We don't even know 72 people. So I said to her, it's late, I'm not doing anything. Tomorrow morning, what we'll do, I'll take this phone, you'll go in the bedroom and take your phone with a paper and pencil, and we'll write down the phone numbers and we'll see what's going on here.
There's 73.
Hello? Hello?